Following on the bombing of Christians in Pakistan, Pope Francis says that we should fight ISIS with, quote, weapons of love. Former FBI Special Agent Manny Gomez on how that tactic would work. A lot of people say, Manny, the idea that we've been so vulnerable, Western nations, shows our love. It shows what we get for that love, extending that love.
Well, obviously, the Pope, being the head of the Catholic Church, is trying to show the message that the Catholic mantra teaches, which is love and turn the other cheek. But at the same time, that is not going to help defeat ISIS. ISIS has already said that they want to put their black flag up on the Vatican and get rid of the Catholic Church and the West as a whole.
Some people in Europe are saying it's that, you know, when you talk about the lack of assimilation among Muslim migrants and refugees, and sort of these attacks which are happening more and more frequently, that part of the blame is on Europe, that Europe is not extending an olive branch, that Europe is not making economic opportunities available. Hence, they've invited these people in, de facto invited them in, rolled out the red carpet, and they're treating them in a way that they can only respond through violence and resentment.
Well, violence is never, should never be an ultimate option. In this case, you're correct. They have not assimilated. That's the great difference between Europe and the U.S. A lot of Muslims come here, they assimilate to the country, they join our schools, they join our businesses, and they become American in every sense of the word. In Europe, they're still very isolated. They don't assimilate. Their culture does not lead that assimilation to be quite easily possible. They have their own communities. The fact that they haven't caught some of these folks yet, they are out there in these communities hiding in plain view, being protected.
Because they're getting a lot of assistance. And so is this a rebuke, then, a complete rebuke now of the notion of multiculturalism, that Europe can cling to its origins, its proud history, and at the same time have other cultures in that same space, if you will, that have total disregard for those same cultures and values?
Well, at this point, Europe is being reactive. They're playing defensive. They don't have the time to really look at the big picture. They really need to figure out who has penetrated them, who out of these tens of thousands of refugees.
But by the same time, you have to have parallel tracks. You want to take care of the problems right now, put out the fires and potential attacks that are right on the planning board right now. But the bigger picture, the larger issue, how do we get here, Europe, and how do we avoid this in the future? I read where in Germany they're considering legislation that would force Muslims to sort of pledge themselves, if you will, to become more ingrained and to pledge themselves to Germany. Is it going to take things like that to sort of curb this?
It's going to take things like that, the same way that we pledge, immigrants come here and pledge allegiance to the United States if they want to become citizens. But Europe has to find a way to blend in more these Muslims that have come into this country by the droves, more to the mainstream, to give them jobs, to give them education, to give them hope. So you
put the onus more on the Europeans as opposed to the folks who have come there from other countries and have been resistant to mingling in, if you will, or assimilating.
I believe they have set up their own communities that just lend themselves to be isolated, as opposed to here in America, they just assimilate with the greater population. Their culture, French, Belgian, they put them away in their own type of community where they have their own self-support system, up to and including hiding these terrorists in plain view and protecting them from the Belgian and French authorities.
Manny, so how do you see it playing out then? In other words, first of all, you're talking about the countries maybe outside of Germany that don't even have the economic wherewithal. You're looking at staggering unemployment rates for native Spaniards, for native Greeks. So how would they have the ability to expand economic opportunities when these countries are in dire straits to begin with?
Well, the dialogue has to start. There is no dialogue at this point. Law enforcement and politicians have to start that dialogue and try to bring them into their own country. Law enforcement,
or should it be politicians?
It needs to be both. Law enforcement on the side are gathering intelligence and trying to put a face to a name so that if and when an attack is being planned or a neighbor is saying something about being radicalized, they could put a call into that law enforcement.
But here's the problem, though, Manny. The one politician there who arguably a year ago was the most powerful, popular one in all of Europe was Angela Merkel, and now say maybe she's clinging on to her political life. She more or less extended a form of an olive branch, and so far she hasn't been rewarded for that.
Agreed. These attacks, these continued attacks, aren't helping those politicians that are looking at the bigger picture. So law enforcement has to take care of the immediate, which is these attacks are going to continue. We just saw it in Pakistan, and we're going to see it in other places, God willing, not here in the States. But the bigger picture is the social economic picture, which is where the politicians and the governments in Europe have to come into the 21st century and realize they have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of these Muslims that have to be brought into the fold.
All right, Manny Gomez, thanks a lot. Good stuff. Appreciate it.
Thank you.